Hi, and welcome to the very first episode of this podcast, The Curiosity Key. And I have invited a very good friend of mine and one of my very first clients who absolutely trusted me when I first started my training and consultancy business last year. So I'm absolutely honoured that Shirley agreed to come and interview me, because I figured if I am my first guest, then you will learn a little bit more about why I wanted to do this and what to expect from this podcast. Plus, it would be a little bit more interesting than hearing me talk to myself for a little bit of time. So thank you, Shirley, for agreeing to do this. And do you want to just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, just so people know who you are?
Thank you, Charlie, and thanks so much for asking me. I'm absolutely delighted, and I'm so thrilled you're doing this. It's a great opportunity, I think, to start a podcast like this. So my background, after a 20-year in pharmaceuticals, I trained as a coach, and Charlie really helped me sort of develop some of my LinkedIn activity. So I do vlogs now. So I've actually entered the video world thanks to Charlie's encouragement. So we've known each other for just over a year now. And I'm really curious to know more about your podcast.
Brilliant.
So the first question I have is, what's the inspiration behind the podcast?
Oh, well, I've wanted to do this podcast for a long time now. And I guess one of the reasons why I decided to do it now was I launched a podcast for a client of mine last July. And I met some people at a podcasting event who quite rightly asked me why I hadn't launched my own podcast yet. And I think it was one of those that I always kept putting excuses in front of me, as to why I will get around to it, I'll do it one day. So I've wanted to do it for a while because I have had the absolute pleasure of working with some absolutely incredible and very, very interesting individuals and companies over the years, more so since I started my own business. And I just think that not enough people know what's actually going on. So I wanted to start this podcast to share the amazing things that's going on in the world of technology today, and also not just in the world of technology, but just the individuals and the businesses that are really contributing to changing the way we do things, changing the planet for the better, because business for good is something very important to me. And I just thought, when I talk to people in person, they're very interested about what's going on. So I thought, why not talk about it on a podcast and share the information? And yeah.
Great. And who is it targeted at?
So I'm targeting this podcast really at anybody that wants to make a change, whether it's a change to the way things are currently done, a change to the way we behave, a change in the world. Innovators, people that like sort of challenging the status quo, that don't like to, sort of just sit on what we've got available to them. They like to, invent new things, discover new things, kind of like the rebels and the disruptors of the world. And anybody that's kind of thinking that they would love to do something in the future, but, may need just that right bit of inspiration to kind of move forwards with it. So, and anybody that's inspired by change, innovation, disruption.
And what is it that you're hoping the podcast will achieve for those people?
Well, I think the first thing is I just want it to, I want it to spark new ideas, and I want it to serve as a source of inspiration for people that are looking for that reason to pursue an idea, or they're looking for inspiration to find out who's doing these amazing things. They want to get ideas from what's happened already, what's going to happen in the future. I've now realised I've forgotten what your question was.
Yeah, what are you hoping that the podcast will achieve? It's all right.
Teach me how to retain things in my head. That would be a wonderful thing right now. I think I want it to be like an inspirational podcast, something that motivates people. And also I want it to be a way to share the wonderful and amazing things that's actually going on around us that we might not be aware of, and to, in one way, promote some of the businesses and the individuals that are taking bold steps forward, sort of people that are challenging the status quo, people that are, disrupting the norm, making changes, making the world a better place. And I think there's too many good things happening in the world that we just need to talk more about it.
Yeah, I get a real sense of somebody that's championing some of the amazing people that you're meeting along the way that maybe don't otherwise get as much coverage as you would have, perhaps.
Oh, absolutely. I think especially because I've worked with technology companies for so many years, and also because I have a background in engineering and tech, that a lot of innovators they're doing all these amazing things, but not necessarily talking about them. And one of the biggest challenges for engineering companies and tech companies is that they're doing these amazing things and they want to get the product perfect, or they want to get the solution just right before they start marketing. And I think sometimes that's a big challenge because innovation is expensive. You do need to talk about it. You need to build that excitement. You need to get your market curious about what it is that you're wanting to achieve, what it is that you're doing. And I hope that with this podcast, it encourages more companies to talk about their vision for the future, to talk about what it is that they're working towards, what change they want to see, and to bring people, along their journey with them, because, it's like strength in numbers. And also networking really does help you get to where you want to go faster. So, I think it's one of those that if people talk more about the amazing things that's happening, the amazing ideas that people are having, prompting people to ask more questions, pursue the answers to the things that they want to know more about. And I think, more amazing things will happen in the future.
So connecting people as well, I'm hearing. Is that right? A way of connecting people.
Yeah, I talk a lot about that. I think because when I set up my business and I wanted to teach people effective networking strategies, especially in a B2B environment, the connections that you have in your network are so valuable. And your network is one of your biggest assets, both as an individual trying to grow your career, if you're trying to start a business, grow a business, if you're looking for investment. And I think as well, there are every single person in the world has their own unique network. And if you don't know the person that you need to connect with, or, you've got a question that you need an answer to, you can find somebody in your network that could connect you with the right person. So I guess with the interviews that I'm going to do with this podcast, I kind of want to help people understand who is around, who they could call on for help, for inspiration, for, advice, anything really.
Yeah, well, that's prompted me just to ask. So what can people expect to hear on the podcast?
Well, without shooting myself in the foot, because I think originally I was like, yes, I'm going to do a weekly interview. So my goal will be to do a weekly interview, but I don't want to shoot myself in the foot. So it will be a series of regular interviews with individuals and businesses and change makers that will, just, I don't want to keep driving this point home about, I want to inspire and empower people to do more, to seek these people out and to help these individuals promote themselves a little bit more too. To kind of share the good news about what's going on, really.
Fantastic. And how will you choose your guests? I'm curious.
Love it. Curious. I want to promote that curiosity. So I actually have quite a long list at the moment of people that I've spoken to in the last few years that are doing incredible things that I've talked about my vision of doing a podcast, and they've shown an interest in doing it. So I think the more I expand my own network as well, come across different businesses, I'm always looking for people to interview and talk more about what it is that they want to do. So unless I've already got you on my list, if you're interested in telling your story and, sort of sharing what you're up to, then get in contact with me and let's talk. Let's get something booked in, because I think also I went to the Web Summit show last year in November, and it was like such a crying shame in one way, because there were over 1,000 exhibitors over that 3-day period. It's absolutely huge, yet so many businesses didn't really talk about what it is that they were doing unless you actually went and asked them. And like, it's impossible to get through everybody in that 3-day period. So you're missing out on so much more. And also the businesses I was able to go and speak to during that time are up to some really incredible things. So I think as well, like going to more conferences and talking to more people, I think there's no shortage in interesting guests for this podcast. So I'm hoping that it will be around
like it.
for a while.
And the curiosity key, what's the inspiration behind the name for the podcast?
Oh, well, I guess that there are two reasons I wanted to pursue the name and have the word curiosity in the title. I guess the first reason is because I am an incredibly naturally curious person. And I think growing up, I was never told by my parents to stop asking questions. And yes, I was that irritating child that wanted to know why to everything. It's like, why is the sky blue? Why does this do this? Why? And, my parents were really, really clever people, because they used to put me and my brother in environments with lots of other interesting people and just basically let us loose and just say, we've had enough of you asking us questions. Go and ask everybody else.
Wonderful. Charlie Wyman as well. It sort of rings true, doesn't it? That why would be sort of like core to you. Lovely.
And I think as well, like, just because I've asked so many questions, when I was at school, actually, that was one place that I was told to stop asking questions. Sitting down in class, you're kind of taught to listen and take note of what was being taught to you. And that just didn't work for me at all. I had a really miserable time at school, and I didn't feel like I learned very much when I was at school, because I had so many questions that just weren't answered. So I think as well, like, I've always wanted to help other people be more curious, because as soon as I left school and I left university and I was able to ask more questions and I was able to pursue things that made me curious, I've been able to have such an incredible career so far, do so many different things, put myself in so many different situations that I would never have the opportunity to do. I guess one example of that I talk about a lot is that I had the opportunity to demonstrate a new piece of laser scanning equipment down the world's deepest mine in South Africa, just because I was at an event in Cape Town and I said to my boss, wow, I'd love to be able to do that. And, he was the sort of person that was like, well, change your flight, go down with the sales manager, go and demo this piece of kit. And, I had that opportunity, but just because I vocalized what I was interested in. So I was curious, and I talked about that. And I think as well, like, I see so many people miss out on opportunities because either they're afraid to ask those questions, they're afraid to put themselves forward for things. And I think, if I can play a part in helping them kind of put themselves out there a little bit more, that for me would be absolutely wonderful.
There's something here about a sense of missing out. I'm curious, what that word again. What is it that there's something I hear that there's something that you see people are missing out on, or what is it you want more of from for people?
I think there's a lot of maybe I'm trying to think what the best way of putting this is. There's a lot of people that are not happy with their situation, or they feel like there is something more to life or more to the world that they could kind of grab hold of, but they're not quite sure how to access that. And I think if you feel empowered to ask more questions and you feel empowered to put yourself out there a little bit more, you can grasp those opportunities that can help you lead a happier life, to lead a more fulfilled life, to and also contribute to the changes that are happening in the world. There's I'm part of an organisation called B1G1 that I joined in December, and since joining this organisation, I've met so many incredible individuals, incredible businesses that are using these. So B1G1 stands for Buy One, Give One. It's an organisation based in Singapore that enables you to incorporate giving into your business. So you can you can kind of give things for as little as a cent, right up to, you know, however much you want to give. And it just enables you to make changes in the world by the power of lots of different small impacts. And the way that people are working towards this goal, and it all supports the UN Sustainable Development Goals, is to try and combat poverty. And I just think that when you look at what other people are doing, you can take inspiration from that. You can incorporate it into what you're doing. You can embed it into your own business. And it's all working towards making the world a better place. You know, the company that I worked for years ago, it was a systems integrator. So it was constantly innovating, constantly finding new ways of doing things, but it brought together technology and innovation that was happening in other areas of the industry, brought that together and made it something bigger and better. So instead of working in isolation on your own, use that curiosity to connect with other people, connect with other ideas, to then have a bigger impact, do more, feel better about it, you know, increase the performance of what it is that you're doing.
Fantastic.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Is there anything else you want to say about the podcast?
I guess as well, because I think we've talked about this in the past, that the other thing about the word curiosity was that I've always taken a lot of inspiration from the Alice in Wonderland books. And, you know, we talked about the Matrix earlier, you know, kind of like, you know, keep the blue pill and sort of live in ignorant bliss, or take the red pill and maybe go down the rabbit hole and, you know, start finding the answers to those sort of more difficult questions that unlock so many other opportunities for you. And I think as well, especially in business, that you're told kind of don't go too far down the rabbit hole, or don't go down the rabbit hole, because then you'll get distracted, or, you know, was it pioneers? No, there's a word and I've forgotten what it is right now, but it's like kind of don't pursue the weird and the wonderful. Whereas I think those that do pursue the weird and the wonderful have such interesting stories to tell, and they're the people that are making the real difference in this world. And I just want to help them tell their stories and help more people learn about the amazing things that are going on in the world.
Oh, I love that. Permission to go down the rabbit hole every now and then. Fantastic. And Charlie, that's fantastic. So how can people get in touch with you, either to contribute or find out more about what you do and your the other part of your business?
So I've got a website, which is just charliewyman.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, because I spend the majority of my time on LinkedIn. Again, just look for me, Charlie Wyman. I'm going to be putting some show notes with this podcast, and I'll host those on my website. So if anybody wants to learn more about myself, or anybody that's interviewed on one of these podcast episodes, then you can go to my website. There'll be some show notes and links back to their websites and LinkedIn profiles and all sorts of different things there as well. So also on Twitter, again, just search for Charlie Wyman.
Oh, great. You're Twitter.
Women with my name.
I'm a bit behind the times on that. Oh, well, thank you. It sounds fantastic, Charlie. I'm really, really looking forward to hearing more as you sort of grow into your podcast. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much for interviewing me. I hope that this is a much more interesting way to introduce what it is that I want to do here, and sort of set the scene as to what's going on with this podcast, what to expect. So thank you for coming on and interviewing me. Hope I haven't rambled on too quickly.
Not at all.
I think it's one piece of feedback that people give to me is that I can get very excited about a particular idea or a particular thing, and then just sort of accelerate my speech massively. So maybe this is one podcast that you kind of leave at, you know, normal speed rather than start speeding it up.
Exactly. But no, I love your enthusiasm. It's infectious, Charlie. So good luck.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you, Shirley.